Hi, this is Math Girl 101, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to use related trig identities. Okay, so we have four trig identities. We have pi minus x, pi plus x, 2 pi minus x, and minus x. So all of related identities only focus on the x-axis plus or minus an acute angle x. So angle x is always between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay? It's a little confusing right now, but it will get a little simpler in my next slides. Okay, so here I'm using the first identity, pi minus x, and we know pi minus x is 180 degrees minus an acute angle, so 0 to 90 degrees. Now, because we're only focusing on the x-axis, I only wrote pi and 2 pi because we don't have to worry about 1/2 pi or 3 over 2 pi, because we are only focusing on the x-axis. Okay, so we know if you know how to convert degrees to radians, we know 2 pi equals 360 degrees, and we know pi is 180 degrees. So here I have an example, sine 150 degrees, and what we want to do is find the related angle of sine 150 degrees. So what we do is we graph sine 150 degrees, and we look for the x-axis sine 150 degrees is closest to. So we look, and it's closest to pi. We know this because it's in the same quadrant as the quadrant is touching pi, 180 degrees. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to use 180 degrees, and we're going to say 180 degrees minus 150 degrees. And what that gives you is 30 degrees. So now we're going to rewrite sine 150 degrees as, here I'm going to write it below, as sine 180 degrees minus 30 degrees. Okay, so what I just did there is I used the identity pi minus x. So I'm using pi, 180 degrees is equal to pi, minus an acute angle, and that's 30 degrees, and that's equal to 150 degrees. But we're not quite done yet. So now we can rewrite everything. So now we can rewrite it as sine 30 degrees. Sorry, I just made it a little bigger there. And that would be the related acute angle. Now, you have to determine if sine would be positive or negative. Now, to determine if sine would be positive or negative, you look at the original equation, sine 150 degrees, and you look at what quadrant that is. And if sine 150 degrees is in the first quadrant or the second quadrant, you know it's positive using cast rule. Okay? So you look at that, and sine 150 degrees is positive because it is in the second quadrant. So you know now that we're finished, and we're going to write a therefore statement. Therefore, sine 150 degrees equals sine 30 degrees. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to write the three identities of pi minus x, which are sine pi minus x. You can have cos pi minus x, or you can have tan pi minus x. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we know that sine pi minus x is equal to sine x, because it would always be in the first or second quadrant, and sine is positive in those quadrants. Then cos pi minus x oh, sorry, it would be in the second quadrant, and sine is always positive in the second quadrant. And then we pull pi minus x would be negative cos x, because cos is negative in the second quadrant. And then we look at tan, and we know tan would be negative as well, because tan is negative in the second quadrant. And those are your 3 identities for pi minus x. Now we're going to move on to the second one. And we have pi plus x. Okay? So, we could possibly have sin pi plus x. We could have tan pi plus x. Or we could have cos pi plus x. Sorry about that. And we know that 180 degrees plus an acute angle would put you in the third quadrant always. And we know the third quadrant sin is negative using cast rule. Okay? And we also know in the third quadrant that tan is negative as well. We know tan is positive in the third quadrant. So it just looks like that. And then using the cast rule, we know that cos is negative in the third quadrant, so it would be like this. Okay? Now, these are the 3 identities for pi plus x. Now we're going to move on to the next identity. So we have 2 pi minus x. Now, we know that there's 3 possible identities for this, like before. You could have sine, oh, sorry about that. You could have sine 2 pi minus x. You could have cos 2 pi minus x, or you could have tan 2 pi minus x. Now, we know that 2 pi equals 360 degrees, and 360 degrees minus an acute angle would always put you in the fourth quadrant. And we know sine is negative in the fourth quadrant. Sorry about that. We know that cos is positive in the fourth quadrant. And we know that tan is negative in the fourth quadrant. Okay? So now we're going to move on to the last identity. And it's negative x. Okay, so when it says negative x, what it means is, here, let me draw a diagram. We know that x is always an acute angle, and if it's a negative angle, that means it's going in counterclockwise, it's going in a clockwise direction, so this way, opposed to the direction we usually go. Okay? Therefore, we know that x is always going to be in the fourth quadrant. Okay, now that we know that it's going to be in the fourth quadrant, we know that there's 3 identities for negative x, and that's sine negative x, tan negative x, and cos negative x. And we know sine negative x would be negative sine x, because sine is negative in the fourth quadrant. We know that tan would be negative tan x, because tan is negative in the fourth quadrant. And as well, we know that cos would be positive, because cos is positive in the fourth quadrant. And those are the 3 identities. And that's it. Those are your identities. That's how you know. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great day. Bye.